Hey Eugina. So Eugina, you're the orgasmic queen. I'm so glad to get you on now. I've been trying to get you on the past few weeks. I'm so glad. And Eugina, I would love you to start off with, how you got into the career as a sex therapist, and we can go from there.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks so much for inviting me to this podcast. I'm really feeling very blessed to have this conversation with you and super excited about our conversation today and what is gonna unfold. I really love talking about pleasure, about intimacy, and some deeper things that actually holding people back from having more pleasure and more intimacy. And how did it, like lots of people asking me, how did you get into this work? And the honest truth is that once upon a time, I needed my own help. I I was living life always craving for a love, and as it seemed to me that all of my relationship was somewhat the same, with a touch of violence, toxicity, and it was just heartbreaking for me how people can go from being madly in love with one another to becoming completely like enemies almost. So I, in one moment, I just looked at myself and I said to myself, let me just see, like, all of my relationships look somewhat the same. Maybe that's not them, maybe that's me. And that was like a pivotal moment for me. I was like, no, can't be me. Like, I am a good one here. Come on. But as soon as I have realized my truth, I was like, no, I think actually that is me. Because how on earth completely different people from completely different sides of the world can end up acting somehow the same? I didn't understand like fully what was the cause of it, but I knew that something was not quite right, and I
What
just didn't know what.
what was the cause of it? So what caused like? Sorry, I'm kind of delving into your but what caused the same patterns and behaviors that you kind of attracted? Like, how did that happen? Like, or how does that happen in general?
Yeah, great question. Because, like I said, I didn't understand it myself. All I knew that, as it seems, that I was at the cause of it all. And when I started actually working on this and exploring more, how could I be at cause of this? Because one of the things that I understood for myself was if I'm the problem, I am the solution. This that was it. And it was already like liberating to know if I can cause mayhem in my life, I can also solve it. So having this realization have been very freeing for me, but now I had to find a solution to what I have caused to myself. So I started exploring different self-development techniques and courses and relationship courses, all kinds of things. And what I have explored and realized that when I was growing up, my family, my mom and my dad, have been in a very dysfunctional relationship. They were in a very toxic relationship where both of my parents have been alcoholics, where violence have been like a everyday thing. It was like kind of normalized. So me as a young child, I have quickly realized, oh, so this is how people relate to one another. So what happened was when I grew up, I kind of modeled their template of relationship into my life. And what even was so interesting that I started attracting people like men into my life who have been exact resemblance of my dad. I got married when I was 20, and my husband, even his laughter was exactly like my dad's laughter. I was like, oh my God, what did I do? I just married my dad. I was like a bit blown away by similarities, but then still nothing kind of rang the alarm bells. What rang the alarm bells that I got divorced, I got into another relationship. It also have been somewhat dysfunctional and violent. I broke up with that partner. I got in another relationship. That relationship was a great relationship, but it had some aspects of violence in it also, and toxicity. And by toxicity, I mean that, I always felt that my partner was treating me badly in some way, that there was always somewhat emotional manipulation. There was always something to like something. And I always felt that I needed to do more, that I needed to do more. So then I got out of that relationship and met another guy, and it was the same. And then, like, after 3 years being in the relationship with him, I was like, okay, something's really wrong here. I don't know what is that, but I know that I need to solve that. So it came to time to for me when I started finally exploring self-development and how things work. I have realized that my parents have modeled for me a model of relationship that I was taking on unconsciously, that they set out the template for me. This is how you do relationship. And whether I like it or not, I was somehow creating that in my life. So the only way for me was to change my reality of relationship was to actually become very honest with myself of where I stand and look at my own traumas. So the only way for me to solve my relationship issues was to actually solve my childhood trauma. And by doing that, my relationships with my lovers, with my friends, with my family also have improved, because when I started putting attention on myself, everything else around me started to unfold in the most beautiful way.
Wow. And so I suppose this probably answered the question I had in my head, and but I'll ask it anyway and see if there's a different. So, why is it that when you do love someone so much, it can end up becoming quite toxic at the end? In some relationships, you can see that, some people are like head over heels with each other. They love each other too, but you can see it's like super toxic. They always complaining. They're almost like running away from each other, sometimes coming back, and it can get really. Why does that happen?
You know, I believe that in the beginning, people put their best personality on. They're like, yeah, we all want to be liked and we all want to be accepted. We all want to be loved. And very often, to it means that people present their version of themselves, which is like the best version of themselves, and actually forgetting about, well, there are other versions of me. There is a moody version of me. There is this version of me. There is that version of me. And what happens after some time, the masks come off. And what happens is that people become more true. But also, I was thinking about this today actually, that we live in the times where we encourage a blame culture. So blame culture is, oh, but you did this, so I gonna go and do that. We keep scores against each other. In the beginning, when you just like meet each other and you wear pink glasses, you like, yeah, I'm so in love with this person. I'm ready to do anything for them. But then as you get more and more comfortable, people start like noticing, oh, I'm not quite liking this thing. And what happens that people don't talk about what they dislike or the problems that occur. They don't talk because it's easier to just like sweep it under the carpet and pretend it's not there. But what happens when you like sweep under the carpet a big enough mountain of whatever it was, sooner or later it's gonna come to a blowout. And what happens that people are not equipped with the tools of express their emotions to one another, because again, we feel that we have to do, like, not everyone of course, but a lot of people feel like, oh, but I got to deal with this myself, and we forget that we are in a partnership. We are in a partnership for a reason. It means that we given, like, we are signing in for supporting one another, and we are signing in for being there for one another, not keeping scores, or not keeping like, you did this last time so now I'm gonna do that, so you went and you done that, so I just gonna go out and outdo you. You know, you went on these holidays with your friends, so now I'm gonna go and book another holidays with my mates, you know. So we just like, when ego gets entangled in a relationship, we just like try and outdo one another, and we forget that we are on the same team. So somehow people become on a different teams. And what happens when someone, like when our team member hurts us, we don't even tell them that, hey, you know, when you did that, that really hurt me. We swallow this and keep this as a resentment until there is so many resentments stored. And then what happens, like, your team member doesn't wash the dishes or doesn't take the rubbish out, and then you just like, ah, but do you remember last year when you done this and that, and like all that, you know, what you've been keeping under the carpet, all that rubbish that you swept under the carpet, gonna come up. And so what happens, the other person feels attacked, and they feel, so then it becomes tit for tat, you know, and like people become feeling unsafe. So you don't feel safe with your partner because you know that no matter what you do, they're gonna keep the score against you. So people start walking on the eggshells with one another. Okay, it's not safe for me to say what I want because immediately we create the stories. They're gonna think of this, they're gonna do that. So we already pre design their responses before we even have a chance to ask for what we want and what we don't want, and say what we really think. Because what happens, we start trying to tailor our conversations to what we think the other person would accept and be accepted in the relationship. And when you can't be yourself, when you cannot really be who you truly are, you can only keep it up for so long until the, you know, the truth of your essence gonna come to the forefront. So this this is my take on how I perceive why a lot of relationships turn sour at the end, because just we are not equipped with true self-expression, true communication. We are not equipped with having boundaries in the relationship because we feel that we have to give it all and give more and give more. But when you don't have anything to give, how do you give? But if you can't say no, then you think that the other person will start resenting. There's like a multiple factors to that, but I think having a strong boundaries and communication, that is a foundation to a strong relationship. But unfortunately not many people can practice that.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, I've been married for 8 years now. I've been going out with my wife for 16. And absolutely communication, communication, communication. That's what's kept us going all the way through. And, you know, just making it clear what the expectations are and making sure despise doesn't happen, which is different to hatred, like so like, not switching off to the person and all sorts. And actually kind of leading on to that with men in particular, and something I've noticed even as a man and other men as well, we don't show our emotions. And how does that affect intimacy?
Oh, this is such a good question. Such a good question. And I would say majority of women, they are quite emotional. I know for myself, I'm quite emotional and I need to connect with my partner on the emotional level. So when my partner isn't expressing any emotions, it's like he's cutting off this possibility of connect. So therefore, if I cannot connect with him on the emotional level, it means I cannot fully open up to him during our lovemaking. So I cannot be really there because there is something that holds him back. And so interesting. I feel that there is a way to say whether the man is opened up or a woman, and another, any person, when you kiss them. So I have developed a like a little insight for myself when I know that my lover is open or holding back. And that's when we kiss. And if he's like fully into kissing, and that usually it's like the tongue is involved, it's like that there is a full on kiss, then he's open. But if he's kissing, but I can feel that there is a holding back in his kiss. It's like when, like for example, not like getting his tongue involved into the kiss and things like that. It feels like he's holding back. It means usually that he's holding back emotionally too.
That's
So that's my
fascinating.
little insight.
Because that can, I mean, I'm guessing that affects the whole lovemaking process. Because I always think that lovemaking starts from waking up in the morning all the way up until night. you know, um, Especially because like myself, and I'm sorry for my mum and dad who are listening to this. Myself and my wife, we'll plan it ahead and we'll know, okay, this is what's going to happen, and and something that I notice is that if it's not right throughout the day, if so, then it's just going to end up terribly. We might as well just not do it because the lovemaking not started. It's going to take a long time to build that up. And so with men, how can they connect to that? So like their sensuality, their own desires. How can they connect so that they get into that state? Um, yeah, what tools have you got?
This is a great question because I feel that a lot of men actually struggling to connect with that before communicating how they feel and their emotions to others. First of all, you have to actually understand that yourself. Right now, I'm feeling this way. And a lot of men have been conditioned that I gotta be strong. I just have to figure it out. So that there is no room for so-called weakness, because being emotional, it's a weakness, right? So at least a lot of my clients, male clients, have been conditioned that way, that you cannot show the weakness, and it's like, don't be a pussy, this kind of thing.
Man
Boys
up.
don't cry. All of this, yeah, and this actually conditioning really disconnects men from their emotions. So a lot of men, when they go through a lot of emotions, they just take themselves out from the picture. Oh my god, I just need some time to like be on my own and understand, because so much is happening and they don't know what is happening. So I would say where great place to start is to tune into your body and like really understand, because emotions, before you can tap in into like big emotions, you have to understand how do you feel in your body. And the very simple way to do that would be when you put your feet firmly on the ground and you just like take a deep breath into your belly and exhale. And then you ask yourself, how do my feet feel on the ground? How do I feel in my body? And you start from very obvious sensations. Well, it feels, and lots of guys or women, they don't know. It's like, well, it feels just normal, feet on the ground. But like when you actually really allow yourself to tune into this sensation, oh, it feels like it's a soft carpet under my feet. My feet feel a bit cold. And then you move up into, how do my legs feel? Okay, my legs are a bit cold. My knees are a bit cold. The rest of my body is a normal temperature. So just very simple things like that will allow you to tune in. This is already right now I'm feeling. And then you tune into your genitals. Your genitals will be a great indication where you're at. A little bit hot, or maybe a little bit cold, or maybe there is a buzzing sensation, or maybe there is a buzzing sensation in your belly. How does it feel for you to sit in your seat? It actually feels quite warm. Okay, it feels like I'm supported. So you start doing the check-in with your body. Very simple things. Do I feel any pains or aches anywhere? Do I feel, how does my chest feels like? How do my shoulders feel like? Is there any pressure anywhere? Maybe there is some pressure in my head. So you start checking in with yourself. And as soon as you get in a habit to understand how you feel in your body, that will be the indication, it will be the gateway for you to start checking in with your bigger emotions. Oh, when I had a conversation with my wife, I had a I felt like I've been attacked and I felt like a buzzing sensation in my chest, for example. So this is the indication. How do I feel when I feel buzzing sensation in my chest? Ah, it feels like I'm not safe, for example. It feels like I need to protect myself, whatever that is. So you can start slowly, slowly checking in with how are you feeling right now. So, and then understand more and more of how do you feel in certain situations. When maybe there is a confrontation, it makes you feel a certain way. When you get defensive, like what I'm actually also understanding that a lot of people lack self-awareness. They do things and they don't know why they do them and how they do them. But what happens, they do things on repeat, on repeat, on repeat out of habit. And what it takes to break the habit is just to start being curious with yourself. When I do this thing, why am I do this? Like when you're curious about everything, when you start to question everything, a lot of things start making sense to you. A lot of things start making sense why they do work, or why they don't work. And what it gives you the insight that you can do more of things that do work and do less of things that don't work. I
That's
hope that
like
makes sense.
no, absolutely. I think self-awareness is so important because, like, even relating to love and intimacy, if you don't know yourself, how are you gonna get it up? How are you gonna, get yourself into that state? That's exactly kind of the process, but also on a job level as well. Like if you're doing a job, if you're not aware that you're why you get a buzz from a certain part of the job, like you're going to go down the wrong route to even earn money. So, this can affect all facets and even food as well. Why are you eating this food? What's going on? So absolutely, absolutely see that. And like with these kind of self-awareness tools and self-love tools, really, like giving yourself some love, giving yourself some time, have you got a success story that you can give me, like with a man that you've helped get through their issues?
Of course, of course. And actually, one of my clients that I been working with, he wanted was he wanted to create a family. He wanted to fall in love and he wanted to get married and have a child. But he had absolute terror about even coming close to a woman that he likes. Like he could not bring himself to speak to a woman at all. And why he had this terror was because he was deeply conditioned that um, women only have sex as a chore. That and this is what he grew up in a very Catholic environment. So what has been happening that he grew up thinking that sex is sin, wanting sex is sin, and women do sex only as a chore, right? So, but in his desire, all he wants to do is to give woman pleasure. But then he starts beating himself up that this is sinful. So every time when he goes and talks to a woman, it's like, oh my God, I'm a pervert because I want to give her pleasure. So what happens that he starts attacking himself in his mind for wanting what he wants. And the only option there is not to talk to women because it's like hiding his desire and what he wants, right? So we had to work through a lot of conditioning as a man he went through, especially as being brought up in a very religious background where, sex is sinful, that you shouldn't be doing that you shouldn't be doing that. And like actually we created clarity in his mind. What does he want? Why does he want it? Why is it important to him? And as soon like this is my framework with people is to help them to get clarity on their desires and why do they want what they want, to become authentic with themselves. Well, this is where I stand because what I see that a lot of people, they are in a place of life where they feel very discouraged or unsatisfied, but then they lie to themselves. Oh, but it's not that bad. You know, I work with people, they are in a sexless marriages and oh, but there is so much worse there. So they lie, they kind of create a delusional story. Oh, but it's not that bad. Oh, but others have it much worse. So I find that when people become authentic with themselves about where they are in life, it's so much easier than to start changing the life experience and creating a new life experience. And then the third one is stepping into your power. Because what happens that people feel so disempowered about expressing themselves, asking for help. And I mean, for example, in my personal relationship, I come across to like my partner is very independent. I can do everything by myself. And what it leaves me with, it's like, well, he doesn't need me. And when someone doesn't need you, it's like you just like feel that you are not needed, that you are not part of this experience. So in our personal relationship we have to work on him opening up to ask for help more, and for me to be very gentle and patient with not like overextending myself trying to help. Because usually what happens, it brings two people together with the two wounds that completely match each other, so it's a very, very interesting dynamic. So important to remember that your power belongs to you, and when you've given out your power to somebody else, you're giving them the keys from your happiness. And no matter how much you love that person, they still cannot be responsible for your happiness. And what people often forget, and I was one of those people too, once upon a time, where I would give the happiness keys to my happiness to somebody, and then I would expect them to make me happy. When I would forget that actually only me who's holding this power, and also respecting people's boundaries, because very often we try to convince one another in doing things that maybe we are not so aligned with doing, and we forget that yes and no are complete answers. So when you say yes to one experience, you can absolutely trust that person that they really mean it, because there is nothing worse for me personally than to go for the experience together and then seeing that my partner doesn't enjoy it, like seeing that is like that he would rather not be there. But it's his responsibility to tell, no, I don't want to do that. So also I find when you hear no from your partner or another person, you actually really can trust their yes, because they really mean it.
So, so what you're saying is really like when it comes to like discussing with your partner, being like we were talking about as well, like communication, being absolutely honest with the person, and warts and all. Let's say it's like, do you want to go for a run? Not really. I feel like eating crisps today. Like that's really important, and you know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
go
and
on, go
not
on.
to take things personally. Not to take things personally. I want to eat crisps today. It doesn't mean that you're a failure, or it doesn't mean that you are unlovable if your partner doesn't want to go for a run with you. And also it doesn't mean that, sometimes that there could be a no to lovemaking. I work with a lot of couples who are actually lost their spark in a relationship. And what happens that one of the partners often initiates the lovemaking, and the other one most of the time is rejected. And what happens over time, it accumulates in this pile of rejection. So the other person doesn't even try to go out of their way to initiate anything, because it's like, well, why would I put myself out there just to be rejected?
Oh,
And the truth is here that, again, because one thing leads to another, lack of communication, the wars of egos, who's outdoing who, and like all of this, it piles up and it creates a separation, it creates the gap between people. So now not only people become flatmates more than romantic partners, but they also keep in score against one another. But when they did this, but then I done that, and blah blah blah. And this is already the initiation for the downhill spiral in the relationship. So I would want to say, if you notice yourself that blame is predominant thing in your relationship, it's time for you to stop and check in with yourself. How happy on a scale 1 to 10 are you in your relationship? Do you still want to be in your relationship? Does it make you happy, or are you just surviving? And if the answer is that you want to be in your relationship, but you know that there are things to be improved, don't wait until, the point of no return. Do something about it now, because you can. There is so much support and advice out there. But then again, a lot of people get, I don't need no help. I can figure it out on my own. Well, then, do something.
There's a reason why you're here in the first place. Maybe you need help. Okay. Well, I mean, I think you've kind of battered on the issue. Like, obviously 16 years. They're definitely 16 years. 16 years. We've gone through thick and we've gone through thin. We've gone through the roughest times. We've got, and something I noticed is exactly that: is stopping and communicating and making sure that, with myself and Amisha, we're communicate, even if it's tough, even if the conversation's tough. This is where the boundary is. This is what we're not going to cross. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're absolutely agree with that. And I suppose leading on to that, because we were 17 when we went out, and obviously we were kind of expressing our traumas from our childhood, and it was going on, and almost like even our marriage had our pre-marriage traumas coming through, and then so. But how does childhood trauma and obviously, like you said, you've been through a violent relationship with alcoholic family. How does that affect confidence, self-esteem, those kind of issues, and how should people address those with their partner or with themselves?
I feel that our childhood sets the tone for how our relationship gonna go, because we already kind of made up our mind by watching them and modeling relationships of our parents to our own. But sometimes there are exceptions. I see people who have been in a who were growing up in a very good families, where there was love and connection. But again, in child's mind, everything in the child's world is about them.
Mm.
So childhood trauma, it doesn't have to be something big happened, and it's like your like myself, that there was a family of alcoholics and domestic violence. What happens, childhood trauma is something that somebody says to you or does to you, and it creates a strong emotional response, because as children we are very impressionate. Anything that happens, we are very connected to our emotions. And when, for example, something happens in your childhood and you have a strong emotional release, your nervous system just locks this feeling. And in a similar emotionally charged situations, this will be the emotional response that you will have. Like, for example, I worked with somebody, and what happened that at school, uh, they've been playing with other kids, and then a mother of another child came up to this kid and said something, started shouting at him. So in that moment he got scared, and his emotional response was like got locked in, as he can't be himself, he can't speak up his mind, and he's not safe around others. So that is the emotional response. So now, going through life, he cannot express himself because he feels like if he expresses himself, then he can get punished or attacked. So he cannot really say how he feels, again because there's repercussions, because he cannot be himself. So what happens now, that he goes through life and collects evidence of that more and more, and in fact what happens, he holds himself back from expressing himself, because in case he does, he gonna get punished. So when he gets into relationship, he holds himself back to avoid the conflict and not to rock the boat, and says yes when he really doesn't want to, so that he can please his partner. So he's still, because he still wants love, right? We all want love. So but there is a limiting belief already, that to be loved I have to sacrifice what I really think and who I really am. So because it's not safe for me to express my true feelings. So, and then it becomes a cycle. So he holds himself back, his partner does things and says things and everything, and he holds it in, until he cannot hold it anymore. And then he's explodes, okay, this relationship doesn't work for me. So they break up, okay, and then he goes to a new relationship. Again, in the beginning, everything is wonderful, everything is so rosy and beautiful and everything. But then again, he doesn't say what he really thinks, he doesn't say what he really means. Once, twice, then it becomes a habit. Then, it's again like more holding back, until he cannot hold it anymore. Again, massive explosion, maybe an argument, okay, they make up, but then already there's point of no return and relationships start fading out. Again, separation, and then on to the new relationship, repeating exactly same pattern.
Which you can
So
see that happening, and you almost attract your trauma towards you. You kind of invoke that issue again and again and again, no matter where you go. Like you were saying with your own your previous relationships and stuff. So like with this relationship, how sorry, just bring back to your personal life again. So how do you avoid bringing back those traumas? Because obviously they're always going to be there, right? That you can't not forget. But how do you make sure that they don't bleed into your relationship, especially if you're there the long term? So,
right, this is a great question, because right now I'm in a relationship with a partner who's also ADHD.
mm,
And, which brings a completely different spin onto our relationship. And something for me to be aware of is myself. Again, I am not in control of his uh, life experiences. I don't know all ins and outs of his life experiences, but all I know is my life, where I come from, and my patterns. So all that I can do is to be fully present in my experience. Okay, so when I feel a certain way, what happens? Where does this come from? And again, uh, like for example, all of my relationships, they teach me something about myself, and this is where I can check in with myself and make sure, okay, am I coming to this place from the point of that I need to prove something, or do I come to this relationship with the desire of give something and offer something? So for example, I have had my childhood trauma, personal childhood trauma, that I'm not important. And my father forgot me in a kindergarten when I was 4 years old, and I have decided to myself that I was not important. So most of my life, I was going through life looking for evidence that I'm not important, where I couldn't speak up, when I couldn't ask my partner what I wanted, where I was putting his needs above my own. So right now, my job with myself and my commitment to myself is to make sure that I'm aware when I do something, why do I do this? Again, questioning everything. Why do I do this? Do I do this to be liked? Do I do this to get out something of this situation? Do I do this to satisfy my needs? Or I do it out of the pure desire because I desire to do it? And nothing is wrong with like either of this. But what is happening when you constantly keep doing something to get something back, and when you don't get back what you aimed to get back, most people, they start holding resentments. And this becomes, but I do all the time this for you, but I do this. I was working with somebody, I was working with one lady, and she kept on treating her partner, it's like, she's like, yes, but he comes back home from work and I would run him a bath and I would just like bath him and everything. Why can't he do this for me? And I'm like, have you ever asked him? She's like, no, but I show him all the time. I treat him like this. But what people don't understand, that showing only is not enough, because then it becomes manipulation. So you do things for your partner to show them how you want to be treated, but then you don't actually say anything. So it becomes, the hidden agenda. And when you don't get the result that you wanted, you become upset and pissed off and resentful, like, oh, you don't do anything for me. But first of all, you must ask. Because also another thing that I have realized, that we are not mind readers. Not men are mind readers, nor women are mind readers. We just like, we go through life doing what we know and doing our best in most cases. In some cases, we don't put an effort when we don't care. And unless you tell and say how it is, the other person just doesn't know. And for me, the worst thing for me is to live in the gray area, in ambiguity. So for me, back to your question, what is very important is to have emotional clarity, so that I know where I stand with myself for first, so then I can communicate that to my partner.
That's
So when I feel a certain way, I'm actually understanding, why do I feel this way? Does it brings up something in me from my past, or does it something that he does, or like wherever that is? So then I can tell him, actually, when you speak to me like this, I don't like it. It brings this up for me. It makes me feel this way. And his intention could be completely like, he could be completely not aware of this. He could be like, oh my God, I didn't know. So, because we are two different people, we come from completely different backgrounds, from different life stories. Yes, that there could be some similarities, but we receive information in a different way, we process information in a different way. So, my responsibility is to be clear with myself where I stand. So then I can communicate that with him and let him know, this is where I stand. Where are you? So from there, we can connect and speak clearly to one another. But what happens sometimes, that ego gets in the way.
of course, of
and then
course.
it becomes and then it becomes a lost battle, because in the end of the day, nobody wins. So I actually have a rule for us. And my rule is, we both of us cannot feel um like our both of us at the same time cannot allow our egos rule. So
Mm.
if you're noticing that my ego is coming up, it means that this is time for you to swallow your ego. Or if I'm observing your ego is coming up, it's my time to swallow my ego. Two of us cannot have ego at the same time, because it just gonna create a freaking conflict.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Which, but I mean, is
yeah,
there a way
and
to
yes, sorry.
is there a way to use your ego in a way that will benefit your relationship? Because I think ego is there for a reason, right? I mean, something I've realized is sometimes I can feel it flare up and I can channel it in a way that kind of resolves the situation pretty well. But is there a way that, like, any tools that you can think of that can help with ego? So it doesn't become, like I said, a cuss battle, or just a battle between two people, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that the best question you can ask yourself is, what is more important for you? To be right,
Mm.
or to have a successful relationship. Because when you are on a mission to be right and it's so important to you, this is like you feeding your ego, right? And when you are actually want for both of you to win, when you are not playing against your partner, then you don't care who wins, you don't care who is right, and actually you can allow your partner to be right, but also you can have a healthy discussion about things. And yes, it can be passionate discussion, but it's like, yes, let's talk about it, let's talk about it, show me. And sometimes, like, I find it actually quite healthy having a different points of view, because if you would have same point of view, that would be freaking boring. That would just be so boring if you would agree on everything. So I find that having a level of disagreement in a relationship is actually quite healthy. It allows people to discuss things and, like, either to get more confident and more um, rooted in what you believe is true, but also you can see another point of view. Oh yeah, I never thought about this way. And sometimes, you know, I like to be right. I don't gonna lie,
Yeah.
I love to be right. But who does? But in the same time, I also am open to, okay, convince me that your point is bad, like that you're right. Convince me, like bring me the evidence that actually I will be able to receive in a way that not like accusing or blaming or like making me feel small. Because what happens when people disagree, and they straight away, like in most cases, go for the, you know, you don't understand anything, but you're stupid, but this, and it becomes an accusation. It does. An
Mm.
accusation, who likes to be accused? Nobody. Who likes to be told what to do? Nobody likes to be told what to do. But when it's a healthy discussion, then okay, tell me, why do you think your view is right and my view is not that right or wrong, or like whatever that is? Show me, without blame, without pointing fingers, without bringing any like unnecessary factors into this discussion, but show me, like, let's discuss this. Then it becomes healthy, then it becomes interesting. But
Mm.
when you start accusing one another and blame one another, it just becomes war. And what does it bring? Nobody wins.